as to how to move forward. So let's talk to the people who actually know about this stuff. So as always, you'll see some old favorites here. Old in terms of they've been with the program for a while, not in terms of how old they are. But delighted, Alan, to have you back from Markham Stouffville Hospital. And we're planning a case study of Markham Stouffville later in the year to look at energy valves and district energy and a whole bunch of the really cool things happening up in the northeast of the city. So delighted to have Alan back, and congratulations on your new title around Manager of Energy and Infrastructure. Rob, thanks again for sharing your insights with from Ontario Shores and the way that you're working this. Jason, if you don't know Jason Poirier from JCI, they're responsible for a number of the most improved of the new hospitals there, and Jason's directly involved with that. So he's got hands-on experience with his own team of taking hospitals like Humber River and having them good and then making them better. And I got Amandeep in here as kind of a referee because I get in trouble with these things around some of the technical aspects. So our technical director from Greening Healthcare to moderate. So welcome, gentlemen. Please open your cameras and open your mics. I apologize. And we're going to keep your good-looking pictures and your titles up in front as we go through this, and we're going to walk through Q&A. And again, my sincere advice to everybody on this call is think about what you're hearing from these guys and use this opportunity to ask your questions through the Q&A, and we will get to as many of your questions as we can if there are a lot, and those that aren't, we'll follow up with afterwards. But I've already forewarned Rob, so we're going to put him on the hot seat first. And Rob, as you looked at the list of the low-hanging fruit checklist there, which are some of those things that you've done already? How successful have they been? Which ones do you think could be beneficial going forward? And how did you get them done? Give us a bit of a feedback on what we've presented so far. So what resonates with you, what you think is on side, and where do you think the possibilities are for the future?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me back, Ian. I think looking at that checklist, the biggest thing that's kind of prompted our successes is schedules, not number one on that list. And that's our air handling systems, as well as some possible night setbacks that we've done around our steam boiler systems and our heating systems. And that's not a one-time thing that we've done. That's a monthly or semi-annually kind of check-in and see where we're at and what's been changed. I don't think I'm the only one in Greening Healthcare that changes things from day to day, really. Well, especially over the last 2 years, there's been so many requests for more fresh air and more air changes and running systems, extended periods of time. We're at that point now where I think most of those things I'd like to say are perhaps gone. So we got to get back to basics, like you said, that low-hanging fruit. Someone put something in the chat, I think it was Alan, said something about low-hanging fruit always grows back. And that's where scheduling comes in,
Thank you. Yeah,
we're trying to, yeah, we're trying to save energy as well, but we're also trying to keep our customers and our clients happy, right? So it's really working with the operators and if they're trying to eliminate a problem temporarily, there may be a set point change or a schedule change, and that's fine in the short term. But getting to the root of the problem and getting things set back to where they are, I think is really key. So scheduling, and that's not just us and the operators sitting down and doing that. That's kind of interviewing the end users as well, and what are their business needs. I think back to when I started at Ontario Shores 4 years ago, there was a lot of 24/7 fans that ran. I think the kitchen operation especially, the kitchen shuts down at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, but that air handler was running until 11 o'clock or midnight. So I said, well, we don't need that. Let's take that back. And that kind of prompts another conversation sometimes, because the manager of the kitchen, we just went through a big renovation the last couple of weeks. So the kitchen was closed for 2 weeks. And she called me up and said, make sure you turn off all the lights, make sure you turn off the fan, or, there's going to be some contractors in this night, turn the fans on for a while for them and then cut them back. So having those conversations with the users, I think, can really prompt some change. So that's the big thing that we've seen with scheduling.
That's great, Rob. Let me pick up on that. So with this kitchen shutdown, with the kitchen renovation there, did you say that the manager in Dietary was asking you about operating schedules, or were you encouraging them?
I think I've encouraged them enough, and I get calls and emails from that manager or several other, if people know they're going to be working from home, which is another big thing that's happened the last 2 years. They'll call me up and say, I don't have anybody here working this week or this month, or, shut everything down, shut the lights off. We had to close down a clinical unit and transfer some patients to another unit based on some staffing challenges. So we obviously took it upon ourselves to shut the air systems down, right? And then I got a call actually from my boss, Doris, Ian.
Yep.
She's great, but she was walking outside at night, or we had some it was still dark at 5 o'clock at night, and she said, well, the lights are on. Would shut off all the lights. So really prompting these conversations to happen, and celebrating the successes, I think, with not only operations people and the senior management, but everybody at the facility. This is what we've saved. This is maybe how you can help us, really get some good conversations and some suggestions going amongst everybody.
So there's a culture thing that's taking hold there, where it's interactive and expected. Alan, this sounds similar to your story at Markham Stouffville.
Yeah, it does, and I agree with Rob. The biggest thing that we had success was the scheduling. But now, I guess ever since COVID, then we've sort of laid back on the schedule. But now we're ready to let go of the schedules and go back to business sometime in April. So, but yeah, in doing the schedules too, you got to be very careful because that's people's areas. So what we did is we had sort of a contract that we sit down with the user and say, this is going to save us energy, put it in a way that it's going to bring back, it can fund an FTE, right? So put it that way, and that way it's not saying that it's going back into my budget. So having that agreement with the user, saying that we're going to schedule, but let them sort of set the set point of what time their area is not going to be impacted.
So scheduling is we looked at that before. How far have you gone beyond non-clinical to clinical areas with that, Alan? And how far have you got to go?
We now have reset the air handlers in the ORs.
Okay.
That's been very successful. And we put in all kinds of sensors for door switches, so we know when the door is open or the door is closed. We had looked at in unoccupied times at 6 air changes per hour, but then our IPAC said, well, we're storing supplies in the OR, so can we go to 9 air changes per hour? So we need to make sure that our IPAC people are happy.
Yeah.
He said, no problem. We'll instead of 6 air changes, we'll go to 9 air changes per hour. But it's been very successful because in their building B, we have 7 or 8 ORs, and then in building A, we have 7 ORs. So it's been working very effectively. You're seeing the changes on the fans. The fans are actually going back, 10, 15, 20% from where they originally are, right? And you see the reheat too is also being impacted by it. So
yeah, picking up on Alan, your comment and what the low-hanging fruit checklist tells us. This is number one measure.
yeah.
So for a moment, I'm going to challenge every hospital on this call that one of your goals for 2022 can and should be, because you can see it's already being done, getting every system that is schedulable, getting it onto a schedule. So if you were to take that as a takeaway, What would you want to know from these folks? So as you're considering Q&A, do take the chance to pop up any questions there, because that would lead to the biggest savings that we've ever seen in greening healthcare if you were all able to do that. But Jason, having just worked together on the Humber River case study, and we documented there all the systems, clinical and non-clinical, that Humber River is already scheduling. Was that the case from the outset, or is that something that you guys have been putting in place over the past 5 years?
Yeah, about 5 years ago, we actually did a big scheduling change within the facility, working alongside with the hospital staff and the members on the redevelopment team. That was very important, of course, and absolutely correct that that is the number one savings to attain essentially a nice baseline. However, like it was mentioned before, you have to manage and keep maintaining that energy savings throughout the years. And Humber for itself was already quite efficient. So we had to go and really figure out what else we could do, right? So a lot of it that we figured out was managing air and managing resets as much as possible. So a lot of what you have in these top 12 actions are stuff that we implemented. Notably, I mean, we have many enthalpy wheels at Humber, and a lot of our other sites where we saw a lot of successes really came down from understanding what's in place, but also implementing changes and reviewing it on a constant basis. You can't just set and forget. You have to review, you have to keep analyzing, you have to identify, you have to have analytics behind the scenes and saying, whoa, hold on, this unit's running a little bit longer than it ought to be, or it's working harder. Is it a passing trap, a passing valve? Is it filters are dirty? Is there somebody put an override? I mean, we're all humans, right? So these things are just setting up a process and having that data analytics to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I want to come back in a moment to how do you guys find the time for all of this? And Alan, I'm especially interested in your new title, but Amandeep, you're doing a bunch of this work right now in Alberta with Alberta Health Services, with different hospitals and different organizations and different individuals, because a lot of this is very human, right? That's how what people know and what they're open to. What kind of when you're trying to put scheduling into effect, what have you learned from doing this across a whole bunch of different hospitals?
Yeah, I think there's, as we all know, there's a status quo in a lot of these measures, right? Like that, this is how the hospitals have been working. Why you guys are coming and changing this stuff? Or this is how my preheat coil was supposed to be. It's been running at -6 degree preheat coil for the last 20 years. Why are we changing this to -10 or -16? So there's initially, you say a pushback on the status quo, but eventually, I think what we found is the power is in the data. So when you present the information with the data that this is what's been supported by multiple organizations, also this is what your impact's going to be if you make those changes, then this thing suddenly starts moving in the right direction. And it doesn't take much. Once the right data is presented to the right people, things fall in place very quickly in a lot of these organizations.
Yeah, and again, that's very human, isn't it? Everybody thinks they're doing the right job. Everybody wants to do the right job. And when you show them with data, not just opinion, but it doesn't compare well, and this is where it's being done elsewhere, people are naturally inclined to, I want to do the right thing. I'm a good person. So, and that plays out consistently through all the different individuals you found in every hospital. I wanted to, I promised you I would, I'm going to depart a bit from the script that we talked about earlier, finding the time to do this. So you're right, Jason, it takes time, and you've got a pretty healthy team there, and at Humber River and the other hospitals that you're running. And you also very often have skin in the game in terms of how the utility cost, the energy use turns out over the course of a year. So it makes business sense for JCI to be properly resourcing these facilities. But Rob, how do you find the time? You're a normal kind of hospital operation. You've got a whole bunch of people. How do you find the time? How do you get your people capable, understanding? How do you get them engaged? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty lucky. I get a pretty engaged team as it is, pretty knowledgeable team. So getting back to, I think, celebrating the successes and telling them what the work is resulting in, whether it's funding a full-time employee or turning money back over to the clinical folks or whatnot. So just reminding them what that hard work is doing, right? And then, when I take every opportunity when I'm bringing on a new staff to kind of say, this is what I'm looking for you. This is where our focus is, energy savings. I think we brought someone aboard, I think 2 years ago now, pretty new to the industry. He actually worked in the kitchen before coming over to us and had a gas ticket to his name. So, some kind of fresh blood. So his kind of job, his duty every day is to take a look at all the HVAC systems. We don't, another thing on that checklist was using some trending data to look at, coil operations, passing coils and things like that. We don't really use the trends a whole lot for that, but in real time, he will, take a look at a system a day or a couple systems a day, depending on his time. And he can identify, maybe we're heating and cooling the same system at the same time, or he finds some VAV boxes that are passing, things like that. So, when someone kind of starts in the department, I make the intention clear that we're big on this, right? We want to kind of be the best, and just from day one, getting that buy-in.
And you've talked before, Rob, so tell us again about staff training, building the capability, the understanding, the knowledge of your folks.
Yeah, when again, back to when I started, there was a new automation platform going in. So, we were a year down the road. We kind of knew how to work the new system and kind of the intricacies around it. But I saw an opportunity to send 2 of my guys that kind of operate the main heating and cooling plants to some industry training. So I sent them to, I think it was in Minneapolis, to Honeywell, and basically go to Honeywell school for 3 days. So they can do some of the trending themselves, uploads and downloading new programs and that. So, a little more of an in-house approach rather than, getting Honeywell to do those things, which obviously they're very good at and they can do. But doing it in-house a little bit quicker, they can play with it. They can see what happens. They can change things on the fly as they need. So that approach has really served us well as well.
So let's stay with the whole question of resourcing for this, and we're acutely conscious when we were reaching out to member hospitals, suggesting measures, improvements they could make. That again, every one of you on the call is already 110% busy, and it's oh good, there's something else I need to do, and so we're kind of always looking at this list of the savings potential of all the member hospitals, many of which are well over $1 million a year. And on the other side of the ledger saying nobody's got time to do this. So let's stay on that theme for a bit. Alan, I'm intrigued with your new title, the organizational adjustments made at Markham Stover. What does that look like?
So yeah, right now I'm the manager of energy infrastructure, plus I'm also sitting in for the manager of plant maintenance. So I got a double-edged sword. So working here. So, but again, like I said, involving your team, that's key in these savings measures. With Honeywell, that's our service building automation service provider. They're at our table. So we have huddles every morning before we start. Honeywell's there with us. And I always say to the guys, our service tech is part of our team. He gets paid by Honeywell, we get paid by the hospital, but he's a part of us, right? We also, his expertise also inspires the guys, but they also, our guys are very vocal. And they will also challenge our Honeywell guy. So, like I said, it's a big team effort having a good BAS provider on site. That, like I said, that is your partner, right?
So picking up on that, do you have dedicated resources on your staff at the hospital that this is their job, as Rob was describing? you got somebody who's their job to look at a couple of systems every day and say, whoops, that's not right, and that's not right, and let's get it. Do you have dedicated resources there, or is it just part of
Well,
everybody?
the guys, they take turns at that. We call them the water shift, and they're the actual building operator for the hospital. So they switch like every 6 weeks, or one guy takes a turn like every week, right? So which is good because like I said, at least to get that operating experience, right?
Yeah.
We are looking at a strategy to build in more building operators and have them dedicated to the hospital and have our trades dedicated to doing work, in their field, right? So, so we are looking at that. So as a BES1 or BES2 or station engineer, whatever. So, yeah.
And just picking up this, and this is for anybody on the panel, are you seeing college courses where the people coming out of those courses are really well attuned to what it is that you're looking for?
I think the BES courses are very valuable, especially if they do the BES1, because the BES1 involves hospital systems.
Okay.
So their knowledge, of operating air handlers and chillers, boilers, right? It's all the systems that we have here in the hospital. We do have, specialized systems too, but their knowledge is very important, right? So,
And which college is that on?
I believe Seneca puts out the BES 1 and 2. Yeah.
Okay. Rob, have you had good experience hiring in?
Yep. Yeah. One of the folks that I talked about sent to the Honeywell School. He was a Seneca College graduate through the BES course. So that's one avenue. There's obviously BOMA courses, or things through chess and things like that. There's several avenues that those can take. And yeah, I think getting someone in, and like I said a little while ago, on the ground floor, getting that buy-in. If that's what they've studied and that's it's been touched on before, I think all the better. Yeah.
And Jason, you've got a whole bunch of really smart people working within your team. Is there a particular location where you, like right now, Seneca owes me a beer, so I'm pretty happy with that. Are there other sources you find for smart people doing the work that you need done?
I think it's everywhere, honestly. There's a lot of smart people out there. It comes down to not just smarts that I'm looking for, but also perseverance, innovation, and looking for that drive, really, right? They have to be curious and willing to learn and work with people. The more we share, the more we learn, the more we get through all these complex problems, right? We're not perfect. And that's what we've done on our side, is really share between the hospitals that we have, between the operators and the sites. You probably saw a lot of the sites see savings at the same time for a good reason. We've also implemented lots of analytics behind the scene through our OpenBlue system that helps us take a lot of that data and share and say, hey, these are the improvements, and you can graphically see it in real time. And that's just great.
Michael, another check-in. Are people looking for help at the moment, or are they keeping quiet and waiting till they get a chance to pick on you later?
We just had the one question. I think Omdeep, you were going to read that one.
Sure, yeah. So I think Ian is just around, how we have capital projects done in a lot of the hospitals. So the question was around if it's a traditional way those capital projects are done, usually those projects do not align with energy efficiency projects. And there is a sort of a maintenance cost and a training for the staff who are not part of the capital projects left to be bared by the hospital. So the question was around, like, is basically they want us to comment on that. Like, how do we see that? How important is that? And I can certainly sort of give my piece on that, and you can jump on that.
Yeah.
Is like generally what we recommend at Gurney Healthcare is like all of your capital project, all of your energy efficiency plans should be aligned with your major capital plans. And once you do those capital plans, part of those capital plans should also include the training for your staff that's going to run that facility after the capital plans are complete.
Okay, and you're doing a fair amount of work with a number of hospitals right now on big capital redevelopment projects. I'm guessing from what I hear from you that the biggest guidance you can bring into that process are metrics. Is that right?
Yeah, so metrics does play a big role in sort of defining those capital plans in a sense, or capital improvements in a sense that it kind of tells you whether you're picking the right equipment, whether your energy efficiency goals will be met by the capital plans that are currently in position, right? So if you're installing air handling units, you want to make sure you're getting the right watts per CFM for the air handling unit that's been put into that place.
Okay, so it's those kind of metrics: lighting power density, watts per square foot, fan power density, watts per CFM, plant efficiency, all those kind of things. That bringing those metrics in, and you're picking those up from the newer P3 hospitals that are at the top end of the chart, right? So yeah.
Yes, that's a part of the COED project or research work we're currently engaged with ISO is looking at those high performance hospitals and sort of identifying that data, analyzing that data, and coming up with best practices out of those hospitals that could inform other existing hospitals and new constructions on what are the key metrics. Those key metrics should become part of the specification. So once they build those new plans or new handling units, they get the right products, so that could help them achieve their targets in energy and emissions.
And how does that relate to commissioning then for those capital projects? Is that done differently in this world?
Currently, yes. Like there's a typical commissioning process which is more focused on the functional piece rather than the performance. So, but as we see a lot of these new developments, they are concerned with how these things will turn out. So, operationally, there's been aspects that are being currently considered in the commissioning piece to ensure that not only the functional piece of the equipment is worked out as in the commissioning phase, also the operational pieces are tied down in the original specification. So when it's been handed over to the hospital, they're getting a functional and fully optimized systems rather than just a functional system, which is traditionally what we have seen in a lot of the big redevelopment projects.
Okay, so we'll again see that unfolding over the course of this year, because we do plan to profile a number of those projects, how that overlay of performance metrics changes the way the design engineers do their work, the commissioning agents do their work, and does lead to getting high performance right out of the gate from the go. The last piece I want to pick up before I kind of talk about how the rest of this year will unfold, and Rob, if I could go back to you one more time, the expectations around a building automation supplier. You mentioned you just recently gone out for your, I think it was 5-year term for a new service agreement. What's your thinking about the relationship between the building automation system? Alan's described he's got a pretty close one within Markham Stouffville. The relationship between the building automation service provider and the operations team. Do you think you're close to having a real partnership, or is it still somewhat transactional that they come in and spend their hours and deal with the stuff that needs to be dealt with? What is that? How's that relationship? And are there any outcomes-based provisions within your new service agreement?
I mean, the relationship is massive, right? Like the symbiotic relationship between the guys that run the plant and the guys that maintain the platform is huge. So, you know, with my guys having a little bit of insight to the world of automation and Honeywell specifically, really opened up the door so they could talk the same language with the tech. Say, I've seen this. What do you think? It's massively important, I think. So, we've tried really hard. We've had some struggles with Honeywell, to be honest, with maintaining the same technician. We've been through, I think, 3 or 4 lead techs, which is a problem. So I've made it clear to the provider and say we got to maintain some consistency, right? So getting that buy-in, that relationship from whoever your vendor is huge. We don't sit down daily like Alan's team does, but once a month we got Honeywell at the table and my guys, and we'll talk through what's coming up and struggles right now, and how we can do better. So, and then getting back to your point, yeah, we just tendered out a maintenance package for this, which we have to every 5 years. We're looking at more maybe outcome-based services now. We've given that opportunity for them instead of more of a traditional model where they spend 8 hours a week or 8 hours a month or wherever you do it. We might be in a position to take on more of an outcome-based system with the successes we've had. We can dial it up a notch and say this is what we want to do now. So it's kind of open for proponents to bid on both ways, and we can digest what comes back and make some decisions from there.
That's very helpful, Rob. And I think this partnership relationship, whether it's aspirational or whether it's real or whether it's evolving, is one that we're going to keep working with as this unfolds, because the building automation is at the heart of the high performance of the top performing hospitals, and finding that niche, that way to working together that really brings out the best, the innovation, and it's still within a specified contract, right? So we'll keep working with you, and as that unfolds over the next months and the years to come. I could do this for another hour, guys, but unfortunately the timing is not helping us here. But I hope we can welcome all of you back for a continuation of this kind of conversation, because making it work in real facilities is there. At this point, unfortunately, because the clock keeps ticking, I'm required to thank the four of you. This has been very insightful. If there are any other questions you have, Michael, we will pick those up after the fact. If people have questions after the webinar, don't hesitate to put them up, and we know and love these guys, and we're well connected with them, and we can pick up answers as and when we need. But this did everything we hoped for and more for this panel. So my sincere thanks to all four of you. Let's step along. So the last few minutes of this session, let me tell you about the big 22 year that's coming. And there's three pieces that we would ask you to consider as you're doing your own planning. And again, very respectful of the fact that everybody is already full-time busy, and the last thing you need is, oh, by the way, here's another important thing to do. But we think this is important. Again, climate crisis is climate crisis. It's not going away. We've lost a year. We need to pick it up. So what we're putting out there by way of the program this year in terms of the number and the type of events looks very similar to 2021. On June the 1st, we have our second webinar that will be looking at central plant. So around the low carbon central plant, it's both the capital planning part that was touched on a moment ago as to if you've got major capital projects coming up, how do you fit those in? But there's also, and acknowledging our Thermogenics as an industry member of greening healthcare, they and their leadership in the Canadian Boiler Society have some really important insights in terms of how do we get the highest efficiency out of the boilers that we're still going to have for the next 10 years, maybe the next 20 years. How do we make them perform as well as they can? So that's going to be the focus in webinar number 2. I mentioned the Summer Forum, the International Federation of Healthcare Engineering. Their conference is from September 17th to 21st at the Western Harbour Castle down there, one of my favorite conference centers. And we at the moment are working towards, with CHES and IFHE, on tagging the Greening Healthcare Summer Forum in person on the back end of that event. So mark those dates in your calendar. And I would advise everybody to think about the IFHE event. It only comes to Toronto once every decade or so. It's your chance to both have an in-person event and listen in to what's happening elsewhere in the world. There's this, again, healthcare has big differences and real similarities, and stealing best practices from each other is a noble sport in what we're doing right now. Planned for at the moment on October the 26th will be our annual updating of the performance of new hospitals. And we have enough interest this year from both the United States and the United Kingdom and other parts of Canada. Our intention is to build in new hospital performance for more just jurisdictions than just Ontario. And we know that when we do that, we're going to get a whole bunch of new insights and wow, why is that the way it is? And look who's doing things better than others. So once again, the metrics, the data kind of drive the investigation into best practices, and we'll look to keep leapfrogging over each other as each hospital provides, again, inspiration and information to help new ones become better still. Our year-end forum is always the celebration. We'll celebrate the results for the year. We'll celebrate successes. We'll look forward to 2022. We'll recognize the top performing hospitals, and we can promise to bring you more panelists like, again, Dr. Penny Ballum from BC for the summer forum last year, and Bob Collins from Humber River. Will have just as worthy dignitaries who can tell us from the top, why are we doing what we're doing and why does it matter? And sometimes we all need to be encouraged that, yeah, we're working hard at this stuff and it really is important and it's appreciated. So those are our 5 events planned for this year. Please plan to prepare those. The cohort projects, again, I referenced the program overview for this year. If you haven't got it, ask Michael for it. But there's a decent description of each of these projects, the ones that I described back at the beginning. Each of those cohort projects, we're recruiting now for the LED lighting and controls project. A number of you we're already in conversation with, along with industry players. As I mentioned, the enthalpy heat wheel optimization project that's being driven from Alberta Health Services, but extends directly. So everybody who's got heat wheels here, we're going to be knocking on your door along with Enbridge and the IESO and other players to help us with that. We plan to continue the big scale low carbon plant work. And so please stay tuned to that, because you're all going to be part of that transition from steam centric high carbon plants to electrified low carbon plants. And it's going to be a step-by-step capital planning process. So take a look at the program overview at the capital projects planned, and please let Michael know if any of them resonates with you as being the right idea at the right time. And finally, again, this is all about action. We really appreciate people's time in joining us today, but if it doesn't lead to change tomorrow, then with greatest respect, we're all wasting time, and we don't have time to waste. So please think about this idea of the Back to Basics Top 12 Challenge. If you think your hospital is kind of ready, we know 2 or 3 of you that have recently hired energy managers and are getting into harness now as to how this is all going to work. If you think you're ready to do this, we are ready to step up and give you a hand. And we talked about, so that's the fruit pickers guide earlier on there. If that's something that appeals to you, we would love to be involved. We'd love to help. Just give Michael a call. So if you're a member hospital and you're ready to start getting into these operational improvements and being part of the big savings scorecard at the end of 2022, we're here to help. And finally, if you're not a member, either a hospital member and you're on this call, or an industry player and you're not involved right now, please give us a call and join us, because again, we got great ambitions. We think we're on the right track, but we really, really need help. So you know where to find us. Michael's our program manager for Greening Healthcare. You heard from Michael at the beginning. Amandeep with Analyfe Consulting is our technical director, and you heard him on the panel. They're here to help. And again, we only measure our success at the end of the year by the actual savings that show up in the meter, and we're more than a little anxious to get involved, roll up our sleeves, and help you make it happen this year. So, as always, thanks to you all for taking the time. Have a great rest of day, however much of your day is left to come, and stay tuned as the rest of this program unfolds over the course of the year. Thank you so much.